more or less what we call persuasion tactics and principles. Like we're always trying to persuade somebody to make a decision.
When we think about social proof, there's the obvious stuff
Yeah.
that we'll see comments and pictures and testimonials and videos and words of people and just stuff like that, where it does highlight the idea that other people liked this thing.
So buckle up, motherfuckers.
We are going to break down the business of fitness and nutrition, but we're specifically going to talk about marketing. And we're going to specifically talk about a very specific piece of marketing. Specifically, I feel like I should just keep trying to throw it in there just to make it entertaining and be like, oh, let's do a drinking game every time Steve says specific. But we're actually going to talk about the idea of some marketing psychology, a couple of principles that you can and should be leveraging in your marketing. But earlier, a couple episodes ago, we had actually talked about things like scholarships and challenges. And there's certain principles that are being used underneath, kind of underlying those tactical strategies and execution things that you're doing on a monthly basis, weekly basis, quarterly basis. We're going to break down a couple of components now, which are things where you should use some of them all the time. Probably ideally one of them, maybe two of them, but they are things that you want to have included in your marketing. And it'll make more sense as we go, but we're going to break it down. We have 5 to talk about. Now, Andrew, you talk to us about all this time you've spent going to school, your doctorate and everything. You're going to school for some type of psychology, right?
I feel like you're just gonna beat up on me.
No. Because it's
guys. Steve hates education,
totally
by
do.
the way.
Just like the halftime show. Hated the halftime show. Hate education. But apparently, I didn't get the halftime show. So
what else do you hate?
To each his own.
Didn't get it.
But anyways,
yes, I am in school for performance psychology, and my research is in desire psychology and consumer psychology specifically. So I've evolved a couple times from studying stress, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of boring. And now these days, I'm like, well, why do people buy things? And at the end of the day, like there are 3 studies that I'm about to publish across the next 15 months around why people buy things, especially particularly like why you buy things that you don't need, which is an interesting concept these days where people don't really have money, but they're buying more shit than ever. And at the same time, like how many things have you bought that are currently sitting on your shelf without ever having you barely opened it? And I'm a great example of this. Like I bought 2 GoPros I bought probably like 5 GoPros over the years. I've maybe used them once. And I'm saying once collectively, one out of I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be great. I'm gonna have all these angles. I'm gonna have like a kinematic video analysis, little suite when I do movement pro. No, I never fucking use that shit. It just doesn't make sense because you gotta upload it. And this is shit people don't talk about when it comes to video editing. Which, by the way, just so we're all clear, every listener, this is what happens when Steve and I have had copious amounts of caffeine. So buckle up, motherfuckers. There you go. There's your opener. Buckle up, motherfucker. But yeah, so that's the stuff that is most interesting to me right now. Hopefully, that's the dissertation that actually gets published. But I mean, I think that's the one that I'll be able to monetize and pay for all my student loans ultimately. But yeah, so I look at kind of why people buy things.
So I'm going to use the words marketing psychology, but psychology very much has air quotes around it as I'm talking about it. They're principles that we try to leverage when it comes to marketing and getting people to take the certain actions that you want them to take. It is not a literal psychological kind of background and everything. Andrew, I desire you to kind of give some, oh yeah, that relates to this true psychology principle if it exists. I'm sure there's always an extent that somehow it does, but I doubt it's the same words I'm using. But for words that you guys are all going to understand, you're going to listen to me. Andrew's going to teach us some shit that we're all going to get smarter from, which is great. But it is something where if you're listening to this, transcribe it, take some notes. Like, these are the things that you want to think about when it comes to getting people to actually take action
Mm-hmm.
on what you want them to take action on, right? We put calls to action out there and we want
Mm-hmm.
people to do a thing. These are the underlying principles that cause them to do a thing. So, jumping
Mm-hmm.
on in, principle number one that we're going to talk about, and I wrote these down to make sure I have them, is the idea of conspicuous consumption. So, when we think through this, the use case or the words that I'll describe it would be, you see something along the lines on the internet, organic, paid ads, where top coaches do this. People who are winning are doing these three things. I was finally able to achieve my success when I did. So we start to kind of relate a desired state, if you want, with the thing, the steps, the whatever it is that you want them to do. So people start to go down this road of thinking, well, I want that success. I want that outcome. I need to do this thing. And that's going to be really kind of the big first thing that we do. We see it all the time. If you scroll through Instagram, you look on Facebook, go look at a majority of anything. Conspicuous consumption is generally the idea that you want to be like and achieve the result, look similar to whatever that thing might be. Imagine the idea of, you're in a coaching business, you sell nutrition or fitness, and all of your ads have these ridiculously amazing looking people on it. Well, people want, they aspire to be like those people. And there's words and there's pictures and imagery and journeys that we can pull people down that help you want to connect or be like that person. So, question number one, Andrew, on this side, what from a true psychological kind of undertone is there at play when we talk about this conspicuous consumption idea? You know it's going to be good when he really gives you that a wind up.
And this is how the evil emerges. No, but I mean, it's interesting when you consider, as you're talking, and hearing it from, and I will say this, like, the context is Steve mentions like marketing psychology, and like the terminology might be different, but understand we have different backgrounds. So first things first, like, let's acknowledge that, so that people are like, oh well, this is the absolute. You might have a very different thing that you use to navigate some of these concepts, but we're always toggling between more or less what we call persuasion tactics and principles. Like, we're always trying to persuade somebody to make a decision. How do we get people to want to do something at the end of the day? And that's where coaches that have information, and we talk about this in a previous episode around the problem awareness continuum, is that you're offering solutions or you're offering information, and you're just vomiting information on people that isn't necessarily desired, nor is it necessary for them to solve the immediate problem. So they kind of discard it. But there are 6 general principles around influencer persuasion that social psychologist Robert Cialdini introduced. This is probably decades ago by now. And there's obviously a lot more outside of this, but 6 general things that you want to ground things in. Reciprocity, which is basically the idea that people don't like to owe you stuff, or they don't like to feel like they're in debt, so they'll try to pay stuff back. So if you ever walk into, this is why free samples are such a powerful persuasion, because you're basically gathering or garnering goodwill. But you're out and about and people say, hey, you want to try something? Like, think about the food court at the mall, if you've ever been to that, and that's your age group. And if it's not, you're not our people. Fuck off. I'm just kidding. We love you. You're probably just a little young for us. Now, all that to say, though, is like, they would give you these free samples because they're hoping that you would try it. And A, if it's a good product, like, you would purchase it, or B, you might start to reflect more positively on the people or the brands that give you free samples. Same thing in Costco. Now, so principle number 1, reciprocity. Number 2, and there's 6, commitment. Right. This is where people want to be consistent with their values. And you hear people like Alex Hormozy and these other individuals, or a lot of compliance professionals. And when I say compliance, generally that's like what we call salespeople, right? They're trying to get you to comply to the thing that they're trying to sell. But basically, people don't want to be, flaky. They don't want to be considered like inauthentic, and it's really a frowned upon. So when you start to label people like, oh, well, you sound really adventurous, you actually then put them in the mindset of, well, yeah, I do see myself as adventurous, and it really kind of drives them down that route. Or, hey, you seem like an innovator, and you've changed the game 6 times. And now this is where, as you're changing the game, you don't want to be inconsistent with that. So you have to re-roll your packaging, which you just end up seeming inauthentic when you don't do that. And this is where the industry starts to develop a reputation for you. So number 3, something called social proof, right? And this is where testimonials and everything like that really start to come in. Of people just want to know that it's safe. And when you think about the kind of the purchasing curve, people that are like early adopters and innovators, like those are people that'll buy it early with minimal proof. But the people that are always waiting because safety is important to them, they'll kind of wait until they're like a laggard or a late adopter or kind of on the back half of the little bell curve. So that's number 1, 2, 3. That's the third one. Fourth one is authority. Who are you? What are your credentials? And this is where people that are certification whores, right? This is where you spend a lot of money to make yourself an authority. And at the same time, there's a lot of different ways to be perceived as an industry thought leader or to be perceived as someone that has more knowledge or basically is considered more adept or an expert compared to the consumer. 5, liking. People got to like you for the most part. This is why we look at know, like, and trust. And then 6 is scarcity. And so I'm sharing these up front. And scarcity, obviously, like you don't want to not have toilet paper during COVID. So you would go out and people would buy things preemptively. Another example is Y2K. People would buy perishable goods, or non-perishable goods. They'd buy toilet paper, whatever. And as soon as they would start to see more people buying them, they would then start to want to buy more of them. And this is kind of the sales psychology as well. When people roll out deals, or they say, hey, there's a limited number, it's there to make sure that you biologically are inclined to go and purchase that. Now, I share all 6 of these up front because these are the things that you want to start to look at as Steve is talking about this stuff, because there are combinations of these things that are happening at every given time. You don't just say, hey, I'm an authority figure, listen to me. People are like, who the fuck are you, douchebag, sit down, right? Nor do you say like, hey, this is the last one, and there is none of the other stuff, because if you're not known or there's no brand experience of you, the tactics and the marketing psychology, which is trying to pull different things together, is not necessarily going to be effective. This is why different strategies exist for coaches that are in online spaces versus in person. Like liking is going to be a lot more prevalent inside of the online space. So again, 6 just to kind of help you guys toggle: reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, and scarcity. And so when we think about applying those 6 into the conspicuous consumption, right? Which 3 things would you say, Steve, out of those 6 are most present in conspicuous consumption?
Man, so I would say commitment pops up for me. Like I want to be like, or I want to be known as, or I want something like that. I wouldn't say reciprocity is coming in there. That's probably also a layer, depending upon how you use it, of social proof. I feel like is going to be thrown in there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure which one would be the third one.
So basically what we're doing is we're looking at someone that we hold in high esteem. So that's like an authority / expert appeal, right? On top of that, we're also looking at social proof. This person who has this outcome that we desire also has achieved this thing. And the last thing is going to be scarcity, because now we've touted them as exclusive. There's a reason why they're successful. It's because, so those 3 things bundled together kind of create something similar to the nutrition world. There's something called the bliss point, which is kind of a disgusting concept and also wildly innovative from whoever, I think in the 70s kind of started to do this. But in nutrition, they look at what are the appropriate amount of fat, sugar, and salt that need to be present in a recipe to actually create a biological dopamine reward. Like, so when you think about people that emotional eat, like different things, people food cravings usually come from the bliss point. And so when we're talking about using that same concept, how much of these levers do you want to put into your recipe? Because if you go out there and just read off of a teleprompter around, the Krebs cycle or carbohydrate metabolism, it's not really going to be probably the best outcome or the best dish for you, so to speak, because the recipe's it's lacking other ingredients. So those would be the 3 things that I would say. And obviously, like, it's open to interpretation. And that's where I think, blending the business world with the academic world is really important. You can't just have one or the other. So that's more or less what I would say. And obviously it's a lot left to interpretation. And that's why I think it's really important for us to blend both like the business and the applied side with the academic side, Business probably wouldn't thrive nearly as well if people from an academic background didn't produce research that people could then pioneer and try out and see, what creative ways they can to apply stuff. On the other end, academics would fucking die if no one actually applied this stuff and they didn't get the feedback and see actually what worked in the real world. So that's kind of what we call applied research. And, your experience is very important for that. So what's number two,
Well, so
Steve?
it's interesting that you say like scarcity, right? Because I see that in conspicuous consumption, but also at the same point in time, traditional marketing would go down the road of this much time left until, this many spots left until, sale over on this date type mentality for scarcity. But I also get the like, oh, I want to be like that thing sooner, or I want to relate to that or be known as that thing sooner and everything as well. So I guess you psychology people just twist it the way you want to make it make everybody think it makes sense.
Well, maybe we just see different uses for the tool, and business people say hammer is only good for hammer, and academics say, oh, is it though? But yeah, I mean, that's the whole premise of why the principles matter. And I love that you highlight this, because this is what we drive in our courses, is that you need to know the base foundation so you can apply it in a masterful way. And, it really does help people maintain a level of creativity when they know that I don't have to do it the same way all the time, because it might not always get the same result. So I might tweak it here and there. But if people don't know the principles, or they don't know why we do things in the first place, then it really does make it challenging. And it can be very frustrating when people are like, well, I tried this one thing and this guru told me to do this one thing, and I did a scholarship, or I did a framework, or I did whatever, and it didn't work. Well, if you're running into these obstacles, if it didn't work, then chances are you're missing critical information as to why it even came about in the first place. And that's really going to be a limitation for you masterfully, again, integrating that into your practice.
Love it. All right. Number 2, I wonder if you guys can guess which of those 6 actual psychological principles this one relates to. So the second marketing principle that I want to talk about is social proof. So do you guys know which one of those 6 that one relates to?
I feel like this is like an episode of Dora the Explorer. Which one is red? Rojo or azul?
So, when we think about social proof, there's the obvious stuff that we'll see: comments and pictures and testimonials and videos and words of people and just stuff like that, where it does highlight the idea that other people liked this thing. They got the outcome that is effectively being promised. It is likely somebody you can relate to. It is likely a result or a service that, or a product you can relate to or see solving your problem. And it's always going to be those words, right? Similar in a sense, but also different, where everybody who is using this thing is also winning with all of that. Again, the words of those people, the image of those people with their thumbs up about how they love it. And that's going to be the social proof side of things. So that's something that should be layered into what you do almost always, because it's a pretty simple one that plays across every single aspect of what marketing you might do. Now, don't literally throw in a testimonial in every single one of your emails you're sending somebody, because that's probably going to get a little bit of a little annoying on the back end. But on social media, occasionally on emails, there's ways to go highlight like client wins and things like that, coach wins, social proofs, testimonials. That's going to apply, again, just a different use case, kind of like what you had mentioned, Andrew, is understanding it and being able to adjust it, where you can go post it on your Instagram as one of the things of, oh, look at said person's results and how happy they are, 5-star reviews, et cetera, et cetera. And then take that exact same person and be like, oh, sharing a client win, it's amazing. Not that you don't want to share the client win because you want to celebrate them and be happy, but at the core of it, that client win that you're sharing with your audience is telling your audience, look, there's other people out there getting the results that you want to get. You should do this too. So thinking about it that way.
Yeah. And I kind of relate it to, it's almost like name dropping, right? Like if you're just like, well, I knew Michael Jackson and we went to his house, and they're like, okay, Macaulay Culkin, right? But like there might be a tasteful way of like saying, I was having a conversation with Michael and we were talking about whatever, right? It's a little more subtle. It's not as over the head. Now there might be instances where if you are like trying to be very overt, trying to draw a lot of attention to something, you might directly call it out. But we find that when people are trying to constantly make it seem like they are in an elevated position or they're better than us, which is where name dropping kind of comes in of like, oh, you think you know all these people and you're cool? Like, cool, douchebag. So that's kind of where we don't want to be we may just want to be careful with how different you want to seem from other people. So that's always kind of like the weird spot of how much you want to stick out versus how much do you want to blend in to be related to someone. But yeah, I mean, so you think about reciprocity, commitment, social proof, authority, liking, scarcity. In my experience, in my perspective, social proof as a marketing concept would include obviously social proof, right? Monkey see, monkey do, and we're actually really equipped to learn through mimicry. But also, I would say that there's an authority thing, like, hey, I am this person, I've generated this, right? And the last thing is commitment, which when we think about the nature of commitment, it's these people said they wanted one thing. I said that I'm able to deliver that one thing. I'm showing that now I can actually commit and follow through with those things. And we see those actually, all of these kind of start to create a sense of trust. And that's really probably the most important unspoken thing that is in the background.
Number 3 on this side of things, self-serving bias. This one's a fun one. And I'm like, man, what am I going to say when we're talking about this? And I decided, well, actually I got distracted. I couldn't figure out what I was going to say. So the thing that I'll show you or I'll share with you on this one is your coaching offer, your coaching business isn't failing because of you, but rather the prior guru didn't actually equip you with knowledge to go and win. So what that means is you're not at fault for your current situation, extenuating circumstances, right? Client version is you're not at fault that you're overweight and you can't gain muscle. The news, social media, all the things you're consuming are driving you in a million different directions. That's why you're confused. Me to you as a coach, hey, the guy that handed you the scholarship and didn't actually teach you principles underneath it, that's the reason the scholarship doesn't work. It's not because you're doing it wrong. Come over here and I'll teach you how to actually use it and the things that are being done. That's a same thing. So it's about making sure that if somebody understands, it's not your fault. It's not you that did this. I can help you. Here's why, here's how. And people start to relate, oh, this person understands me. They get it. They know why I'm here and they're telling me it's not my fault. People love to know when like they're not wrong, get that reinforcement there. So that's going to naturally pull somebody to you. And then you're going to go ahead and be able to highlight, well, here's the different angle, the different thing, the different mechanism that actually creates the result that you were looking for. And they're going to desire, wow, I've not gotten a result. I'm still looking, which is why they see whatever it is you're doing. This person's going to do it differently than everybody else I've ever seen. And different is probably what I need because the same hasn't worked for however long. So let me go there. You hit on a couple of those components on that side of things. So that's a pretty powerful one. But again, it can also backfire because if you're like, hey, you're not insert whatever reason that doesn't relate to them, they're not going to get it. Right. So you need to make sure you're pulling people through that right journey to highlight that. But that is a very powerful one when it lands. So Andrew, of our 6 principles that you shared with us, which ones are being thrown into that mix?
I mean, that's not necessarily a persuasion principle from what it's not what first occurs to me. It's like something called attribution bias, which is basically where people will try to paint themselves in the best light and they'll try to displace anything that might be perceived as negative off of them. And those tend to be people that we would consider like a little less mature, a little less secure, a little less okay with their own sense of humanity. And they tend to also be very low empathetic people, in my experience. And so, I mean, when I think about like the self-serving bias and it's, again, very similar to attribution bias, which is I'm going to attribute my success to me, my failures to anything else. I mean, if from a marketing perspective, honestly, that's a really tough one. Because the thing that keeps popping in my head is like, I'm rubber, you're glue, whatever you say bounces off me and sticks to you, and it's like very childish in that perspective.
I
But
I see
um,
in there, like, I see reciprocity popping up because it's like, oh, you told me it wasn't my fault. You're making me feel good. I want to return it to an extent. Like, I want to return that relationship currency that was built a little bit there. You understand
yeah,
me type mentality. And again, I'm I'm bridging those gaps, but that's kind of what I see a little bit popping up there.
mm, I can see that. Yeah, I would also, I mean, obviously authority when someone has like something new, because I'm thinking about it from the consumer perspective. So like if I put on the business perspective, um obviously there is the authority, and then there's obviously the goodwill that you're garnering because you're like, oh, it's not your fault. And like there is something called idiot compassion, which is where people are too enabling and they don't hold people accountable for certain outcomes. And so I would say that there's almost the element of authority liking and reciprocity in that version. Because social proof, I mean, not exactly what I would consider commitment. Probably not really looking at alignment between what people espouse are their values and what their actual values are, nor is it scarcity. So yeah, I'd probably say those three.
Number 4. This one again is going to be a hard one for you to correlate over into the 6 principles that you shared. Commitment and consistency. So the general idea is, you already started this journey. You already started learning. You already started trying to build a business. You already started trying to lose weight. You already started trying to eat more protein, whatever it is. You might as well continue. Like, you're already on that journey.
Oh,
Don't you want to keep going? Like, you don't want to have to start all
mm,
over again. And it's that whole conversation
mm-hmm,
of, let's just keep it going. And obviously that's one lane to pick, but you've already tried to not
mm-hmm,
get this. You've already tried to avoid this. You've already, whatever it is. You can also lean in the sense of like, hey, you've already started gaining the weight back that you once lost. We want to make sure we curb that and go back to losing the weight that we had, right? We highlight those like, you've already started this thing that you're afraid of. You had done this thing that you loved. So it's just different
mm-hmm.
ways to be able to leverage that. Um, this is definitely like the
Oh,
scarcity one of your 6, right, Andrew? Definitely scarcity and reciprocation. Only those two, no other ones that you mentioned.
sure, Steve, if that's going to help you feel like that's the approach. I mean, it's kind of, when I think about it, it's a cognitive distortion realistically, and it comes from the sunk cost fallacy of, I've invested all this time, this money, and these resources, and I feel like I'm obligated to see it through to the end. And so I would say there's almost like definitely commitment, definitely authority, like, who are you? I know what we're talking about. I know what you need to do to keep going. You're saying that you're committed. So like, what are you doing? And then, yeah, I mean, I struggle to see the
I
scarcity
was
one.
making a joke
Um, oh,
because
I was like,
one
I
of
did,
yours is
I
commitments, and
thought
this
you
one's
got
commitment and
the thought for me.
consistency.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I was like,
If we
wait a
were in
minute.
person, that would have landed better. I know.
I like trains and planes. No, no. So I mean, yeah, I would say that those are probably the biggest ones for me. And then I would assume probably likability, but
Wait,
I mean that's such a
hold
tough
on,
one because you can drop it.
Andrew. Don't you think you've spent too much time and money going to school? So why
Yes,
don't you just stop?
because I'm so close.
See see how that works?
It's not a
See,
sunk cost at that point.
it's not sunk cost because it's convenient for you. That it's not sunk cost.
Not convenient. It's actually really
Yep.
inconvenient for me.
See, see,
It's
see.
really inconvenient for
Do you
sure.
feel Andrew's mannerisms change too? Even though he just told us what it was from a psychological principle, now he's like, that doesn't apply to me. Damn it.
No, it's you're misapplying it, because when you consider a sunk cost, it means that the outcome is not going to justify the effort, nor will it really be worth the resources. And in this case, I mean, let's just be honest. If I want to create an educational curriculum, I'm going to have to be a doctor.
See, gang. See.
Hence, not sunk cost. But people justify their decisions all the time, and that actually is kind of an interesting thing where you think people will buy. They'll buy based on emotion and they'll justify with
100%.
logic. And at the end of the day, like whatever you think, and this is where it's kind of funny, where you have to really be attuned to what's important to you and your values. And if you're making decisions that aren't based upon your values, then that's where you would start to wiggle through. You might be putting yourself in some weird compromising positions if you can't justify the ROI or the return on investment for any kind of effort. Then and that includes your education stuff. So if you spent $12,000 on an educational bundle from a previous organization and they said, hey, you're going to be able to make 10K in 10 days or 12 months, which used to be a thing, and you're like, okay, cool, how? And it's crickets. They're like, well, just go through the courses. But how do the courses help me to make 10K? Well, I got nothing. So I mean, and when we think about it, again, like you should be able to justify something from how it aligns with your goals versus like going in and letting them convince you how it might align, because sometimes that
Yeah,
gets
no,
funky.
you're a good call on that.
But anyway,
Good
sunk
call.
cost.
All right. Last
It's
one.
not sunk
Last one.
cost.
So, marketing side, it's called loss aversion. As humans, we tend to hate losing things more. So, good example, if you find $100 bill, you're going to be happy. You found $100. Who's not happy? Instead of you finding that $100 bill, you accidentally lose $100 bill somewhere. Generally speaking, the reaction to that loss is greater than the reaction to the gain of the same exact change off of zero. You'd think you're plus 100 or minus 100. Usually people react more strongly towards the, oh, I lost my $100. So loss aversion tends to be a pretty real thing. And we would say, every day. So like one that we might use with you guys as coaches is every day that you're not using AOM, you're leaving money on the table. Now, granted, this might cost you $8-9 a month from a platform fee on the other side of things. We teach you some skills and procedures and policies that you need to go do. This thing guarantees it gets done. It saves you time. But to buy those softwares, it's $8 a day. So would you spend $8 to guarantee certain things get done and to guarantee an outcome and you're not losing money? Most people are going to turn and go, yeah, again, your profits and making sure your margins and all your numbers make sense to do it. But when you're leaving money on the table, you're like, man, I don't want to leave money on the table. I don't want to lose that money. I should buy this thing because it makes sense to buy it. So that's another big one there. Loss aversion, relating back to the 6 that you would share, like the biggest thing that pops up to me is like a different type of scarcity in a sense where like, man, I'm losing this thing the longer I don't do the thing, right? It's not a due by date, but if I tell you it's only $8 a day, but what if you're giving up 2 sales a week?
Yeah.
I don't know. If you sell $300 a month times 2 a week, that's $600 per week times 4 weeks. Now all of a sudden we got $2,400 a month in revenue you're losing by not spending $8 a day. It seems like a no-brainer to go do the thing. Again, seems, but that's kind of just a positioning statement there from that side.
No, and that's, you want to start to do the math exactly how you just broke it down of like, well, what's your hourly worth? And I would say like, because you're always weighing against opportunity cost. What could you have made in this hour versus what did you actually generate in that hour? And this is where there's a lot of people that really misapply that. And I think people, the first time I saw someone kind of talk about it on socials, it was Alex Hormozy, and you saw these people kind of go about it. And like, it's not a concept that's new, but the way he explained it was like, of course I ate Chipotle because by the time I would go through and, buy the food from the grocery store, and then I would prepare the food, and then I would eat the food, and, it'd be a couple hours of time, and his time happened to be worth more than $12, which is how long it took for him to go and get the meal. Now I say that people misapply that simply for the fact that they go out and, they won't do revenue generating activities. They'll go and like fuck off instead. And so that's where when we think about like loss aversion and how all that stuff ultimately comes in is you're trying to figure out your hourly cost. So take your annual salary, divide it by 52, divide that, by 40 hours a week, which is a traditional full-time work week. And that's basically what your hours should be worth. And now making decisions against, is that going to go up or down, or in terms of, how that money gets reconciled in your account. And if you're paying again for like a $12,000 educational bundle, then how does that definitively increase your hourly value? And this is where having a side hustle on top of your main job sometimes is a really good idea for most people. To where if you're making 60, I think the average income is like 52,000 or 54,000 right now, for a new graduate student, or for a new college grad. It's a little bit lower if you don't have a degree. But like now, if you have a side hustle and you gain, let's say, 2 clients a month, one every other week, that's roughly 26 clients a year, right? 26 clients. And that's if you keep them, by the way, which we find that shitty coaches tend not to keep clients very long. So that's a different caveat. But 26 times 230. Steve, what rough math?
50 grand ish.
50 grand for a side hustle gets you almost as much as a main job, right? Does that mean that if you didn't have the main job, you would have 100 grand? Probably not. But, maybe the main job helps you have some psychological security, and that now helps you sell without pressure, and you feel like you're still doing it for the right reasons. And now all of a sudden you're, 56 plus 50, you're 106 grand a year. So 10 grand or 12 grand from that perspective makes a lot of sense. But if you have no idea on how to deliver service, nor do you have any idea how to package your service to make it appealing, nor do you have a way to get it in front of people, you really probably don't stand much of a chance to get there, right? So that's kind of why we stack, results probably come as a priority and a premium for most people, because quite frankly, like 1 out of every 3 people actually get the result that they're paying for, which is really sad. So that's me couching that and saying that.
Yeah. Love it. Well, listen, so we spoke about I'll say 11 different things. There's definitely overlap on some of them. Very much from a psychological standpoint, but also from a marketing standpoint. And here's the best part, and Andrew, I think you articulated it very well. The marketing side of things is usually some type of combination, some type of recipe of pulling a couple of those things together. There will be some of you who are going to not take any action because you're sitting here trying to think about the perfect ways to deploy all these things. And there's going to be some of you who just run and gun and don't actually understand the basis. It's not going to work, and you're not going to know how to adjust it. Where you need to be is somewhere in between. Take quick action, and I gave you some things and some examples that you can leverage immediately, but also learn from those and try to leverage more and put more components into this. As you go through, you can also start to create different things in your business. So if somebody buys your front end offer, whatever the first thing is that you sell, guess what? You do create a new problem for them, right? Hey, I'm going to work with Andrew, and now I'm going to go out and I'm going to be one of those 1 in 3 that get results, and I lose weight, or my arms get massive. Either way, maybe the problem Andrew creates is you need new clothes, whether they need to get smaller or bigger.
That does happen.
Right?
They get so mad.
Yeah, but
so
hey,
mad.
Andrew, being a forward thinker and understanding that I created a problem, he is now going to go down the road of, I'm going to have a partnership with a clothing company, let's say Stitch Fix, right? And he's going to go and, hey, if you go to Stitch Fix and they send you a whole box of clothes every month and different things, it's great. I also get you 20% off and save you money because you're going through me. And then Andrew makes 10% on the back end. He makes more revenue. He's leveraging and increasing client lifetime value, and the client gets new clothes. But how do we go down the road of creating the demand, leveraging the things? Even though we talk about these in terms of marketing, when somebody's a client with you, you can still generally leverage these principles, right? Hey, I give you 20% off to go get new clothes. Oh, Andrew gave me something. I should go get these clothes, right? Reciprocity right there at play. And this is just a very easy, simple example. I'm not saying you should go out and do this with everybody, but it's an obvious one where you can go out and have that conversation. Let's say your super secret formula to everybody packing on all their muscle is this very specific particular protein. Well, instead of them going and hunting and searching it down, why don't you have some type of agreement with this protein company where you can get paid and that client can get it for less expensive, right? There's a lot of ways in your business to go and create more opportunity and leverage these principles and these
Mm-hmm.
thoughts along the way. It doesn't only have to be in marketing. It can be through service delivery. It can be into the next level of service that you offer, or whatever your back end and continuity or long-term offer is. There's a lot of ways out there, but get creative. Make sure you're leveraging it in marketing and acquisition, obviously, but how can you deploy that across a wider part of your business to create more success for yourself? And that's really where the key is. That's
Mm-hmm.
what creates success versus holds people back. Like, one of the biggest things at
Mm-hmm.
Amazon that ever did well was created an Amazon Prime subscription. That's where they make the bulk of their money in their business, right? And here's what happened. Oh, I want to buy from Amazon. They have everything. Let me get shipping. Okay, I can get it in 2 days. I got to pay for it all the time. What do people not want to pay for when they're shopping? They don't want to pay for delivery. Well, what if we give them free delivery in exchange to get this membership? Amazon created a problem. They had all these things you wanted to buy. They recognized you didn't want to keep paying delivery. Well, let's get free delivery in a subscription, which is now part of what is the most profitable subscription model in the history of the world. It might be the most, but it's definitely one of the most. And it's just the idea of, how do I go in and solve a problem for somebody and then leverage one of these ideas of, I don't want to pay this all the time. Let me do this thing. That's amazing. Everybody pays
Mm-hmm.
$20 a month in delivery fees for Amazon.
Is
I
that how
think it's
much it is?
$120 a year now. I don't even know. I have no idea. $140, $60. You're paying at least $10 a month in delivery fees. But you got Prime, you can watch TV, football, you can watch all this stuff now. So the value is so good. Of course you're going to do it, and you don't have to pay for delivery. So I hope that was helpful. This is one of those things that I love talking about, and I could nerd out for hours, but I don't want to keep you guys here for hours. Write down those components, think through what you're doing. Your emails, your content, your paid ads, whatever it is that you're doing should include at least one, if not multiple components of this. And these are the things that start to help elevate you and help make your life, your marketing, your acquisition, your ascension easier and better for you and your business, so you can start to spend less time doing it and focusing on the things that you like to do. But all that to say, we appreciate you guys spending some time with us today. Be on the lookout. We're throwing an event here, 3 days at the end of the month. We're going to actually spend some time talking through these principles in person on one of those days. The other 2 days, we're going to be spending time on a certification, going through some nutrition. So you should definitely show up. We're making it super inexpensive. We're going to give you a voucher, a discount, and a coupon all in one if you've gone somewhere else, gotten a different nutrition certification, to help make sure you're getting the most up-to-date information possible. It's going to make you the best coach possible so you can create amazing results. Otherwise, if this was helpful, hit that like button for us. That helps us, please. If you want to hear future episodes, smash that subscribe button. We'll be back twice a week. Until next time, gang, have a great day.